Hello everyone. So this is Mansi from Java Techies. So today I am here to talk about some of the Spring Boot interview questions and answers that are frequently asked by most of the organizations. So I've prepared this set of 10 questions that are very commonly asked into most of the organizations. So let us go through them one by one. So the first one is, why should we avoid the Spring Boot framework? As we all know the advantages, we generally talk about the advantages of Spring Boot, right? That Spring Boot enables the developer to create a production ready application without taking care of the configuration that is completely taken care by Spring Boot itself. And apart from that, we have an embedded Tomcat server as well. So it makes the life of developer very easy, and you just have to worry about the business logic. Rest of the things are mostly taken care by the Spring Boot framework itself. So this is one of the major advantages of Spring Boot framework, and there are a list of other advantages as well. I'll not go into much of the details of that. We will talk about why should one avoid Spring Boot framework, or you can say what are the disadvantages of Spring Boot framework. So listing them down. So Spring Boot actually, as soon as you provide some starters into your pom.xml or your Gradle build.gradle, it actually downloads a lot of dependencies from the central repository to your local M2. And it actually includes a lot of dependencies in jars packaged as part of your jar or war whatever you have provided as part of your packaging. So into your jar or war file, whatever you provide, it actually includes a lot of dependencies which at times are not even useful. So this is one of the disadvantage. It actually increases your jar or war file to a large size, which is one of the issue. Apart from that, it is suitable for microservice and web services based environment. So when in case of large monolithic applications, so in that case Spring Boot doesn't solve much of the purpose. Like with Spring Boot, it is generally easy to you can say club a lot of applications together working into a microservice based architecture and interacting with one another. Now moving ahead, so how Spring Boot works internally. So if you talk about Spring Boot internal functionality, as soon as you create a Spring Boot project, you get an application class as part of it. That application class has an annotation and a main method. That annotation is Spring Boot application. So the main method of that particular class is the entry point from which your entire application starts. Whenever you do right click, run as Spring Boot project or run as Java application, so in that case that main method gets executed. So that is the entry point. And apart from that, you have a @Spring Boot application, this annotation onto that application class. So most of the interviewers also ask this question, like what all annotations are part of @Spring Boot application. So we usually have three annotations which are part of @Spring Boot application. For the first one, we have @component scan, we have @enable auto configuration and @configuration. Now I'll just provide brief details about all these, and in the further slide I'll be explaining them into much detail. So component scan annotation, basically what it does, it scans all your packages, whatever you provide. Like into the parameters you can provide base packages as well. So it scans all the packages onto your class path, and it creates beans out of those wherever you have mentioned, like @component, @service, @repository, @bean. So likewise that it actually scans all the files onto your class path and generates the beans into the Spring container itself. Now coming on to @auto configuration annotation. So this is a magical annotation for the developers, I can say. So this annotation actually configures everything automatically. What happens is, as soon as your jars and your dependencies get downloaded from the Maven repository, So what happens, it actually you can say goes through all your dependencies and auto configure them into your application. Like for example, I'll just give a very simple example. So into any of your REST controller, what you usually do, you return a POJO, and on the client, whenever you get the response from the server on the client side, you are able to see it as a JSON format. So what happens in the background, so this thing is actually done by @enable auto configuration. You need not to do anything. Basically from the package, that is Jackson object mapper packages, it automatically configures and converts your POJO to your JSON format, because of which when you return a POJO, you are actually able to see the JSON format on the client side. This is one of the example of this @enable auto configuration, what it does for you. Apart from that, I have one more example. So suppose you have Spring and JPA database connected to it. So you usually have a Spring Boot starter data JPA. You have to include that as a dependency. As soon as you include it, it actually configures most of the things for you. You just need to provide the connection URI of your server where your database is running. Apart from that, you need not to do manual configurations. You can simply start creating your entity and repository classes and start using them and performing operations like save, update, etc. Now, moving to the next question. What is a Spring Boot starter? So Spring Boot starter is something you can say it's a kind of a package. I won't say as a package. It's a kind of you can say combination of or group of multiple dependencies that are clubbed together into one. So we have multiple starters like Spring Boot Starter Web, Spring Boot Starter Parent. So all these are basically templates which provide a rapid application development. It's a kind of a combination of multiple dependencies. As soon as you include these starter into your pom.xml or build.gradle, this and you start building your project, so these starters actually help to download a set of dependencies which are initially required for your development purpose. Moving ahead to the next one. So what are the major starter dependencies of Spring Boot application? I mentioned a couple of those in the previous slide as well. So one is Spring Boot Starter Parent, which we usually provide as a dependency. It has default configurations for a Spring Boot application. It also includes Maven plugins such as Maven jar plugin, Surefire plugin, War plugin. So this all comes packaged as part of Spring Boot Startup Parent. Then we have Spring Boot Startup Web. This includes most of the web related dependencies like Spring MVC, REST related dependencies, and your default embedded Tomcat server is also a part of this starter web dependency. This is one of the things that has to be kept in mind. Now this particular, when you include this Spring Boot starter web dependency, there are a lot of dependencies coming to your local M2 repository. So this also includes Tomcat as part of it. Moving on to the next one, Spring Boot Starter Security. This is for security purpose. So this actually includes Spring Security part and includes that as a jar onto your class path. So Spring Boot automatically, if you just include this annotation, it will automatically provide basic authentication to all your endpoints that you have. Further, you can also configure different other things, filters and all those things later. Apart from that, we have starter test. So this includes the test dependencies that we can use along with JUnits and Mockito framework for writing the unit test purpose. And we have Spring Boot Starter Actuator. Actuator is also one of the dependencies. So Actuator actually helps monitoring your application. As soon as you include this Spring Boot Starter Actuator, it automatically, that enable auto configuration automatically configures it, and as soon as your application start, you will be able to see some default actuator endpoints. You just need to provide what all endpoints you want to expose as part of actuator management endpoints into your application.properties, and from there, as soon as you provide that, you need not to actually do anything. You can simply start your application and you will see actuator health and other metrics logging all those endpoints by default. If you want to create your custom ones, you can also do that. You can restrict multiple endpoints into your dev and prod environment. Like suppose, for example, I just want health endpoint for my prod, and I want all health metrics and other endpoints for my dev environment. So that level of segregation also you can do. But this actuator actually used to monitor the health of your application and various other things, if they are up, down, etc., things like that. Moving to the next one, explain @Spring Boot application annotation. So as I also mentioned, as soon as you create a Spring Boot application, you will get a class something like this. So there will be an application class which will have a main method, and it will be annotated with Spring Boot application. So this Spring Boot application actually comprises of @configuration, @enable auto configuration, and @component scan. So sometimes interviewers also ask, suppose I do not include this Spring Boot application annotation, then how you are going to make it work? So in case of that Spring Boot application, if you do not include, you have to include configuration, enable configuration, and component scan specifically here. Then your application will actually behave the same way as it is behaving with Spring Boot application annotation. Moving ahead to the next one. So what is auto configuration? I already explained a little bit about the auto configuration. So auto configuration is actually done by this @enable auto configuration annotation. So if you talk about that, so auto configuration is actually, it checks whatever jars are available on your class path. According to that, it auto configures the basic configurations for you. Like as I mentioned, with suppose you get with the dependencies of actuator that you get, it automatically configures the actuator part for you. You do not need to manually configure anything. It will auto configure that. And also one more example that I gave was, when you return a Pojo, you are able to see on the client Postman, Swagger, or whatever REST client you have. Onto that, you are able to actually see a JSON format or maybe XML format. So that is done by auto configuration. On the class path, we have jars like Jackson object mappers. So using that, it actually auto configures and converts your Pojo into your particular JSON or XML format. Apart from that, also we have multiple dependencies like database, etc. So all those things are actually auto configured using this particular annotation. So now the next one is, can you explain component scan in Spring Boot? So component scan is part of @Spring Boot application annotation. It scans the root or base packages of your main class that is annotated with @Spring Boot application. So whatever your base packages are, and whatever is present onto those packages, all the configuration, REST controller, component, @service, @repository, it actually scans all of those and creates beans out of that. So this is what @component scan does. Usually it looks something like this. And if you want to scan a particular package, like you can provide like this @component scan, and into double quotes you can provide your particular package. So you can specify the base packages, it will scan. So most of the people also ask as part of interview, suppose I have a jar that I have included as a dependency, and I want to actually auto wire or create a bean of that particular jar into my application code. So how to do that? So you can simply, into your @component scan, simply provide the package of that particular jar whose class you want to be created as a bean, which will be managed by the Spring container. So like this you can actually provide that. Moving ahead to the next one. So can you disable particular auto configuration in Spring Boot? Explain how. Yes, we can actually disable certain auto configurations that are done. So suppose there is something that you do not want to be configured automatically, you want to provide your own custom configuration for that. So simply you can do it like this: enable auto configuration, and inside the parameters you can do exclude is equal to, and you can provide the class which you do not want to be configured as part of auto configuration. Like here, data source auto configuration I have excluded. You can provide multiple configurations using comma separated. So you like data source auto configuration comma some other class, so you can provide multiple classes over here. And if you want to do as part of @Spring Boot application annotation, you can do it simply like this: @Spring Boot application, and again you can provide exclude is equal to like this. For a single one you can provide like this. If you want to provide multiple, so inside the curly braces you can provide them comma separated. What are the important annotations for Spring Boot? Here there are a lot of annotations. I have just included the ones that are more important, or you can see that are related to REST, actually your REST endpoints. So first one is @REST controller. So this is a class level annotation where we actually provided over our class to let the Spring know that okay, this is a REST controller. Now another question that usually people ask is, what is the difference between REST controller and @controller? So the only difference is that REST controller is equivalent to @controller plus @response body. Usually with every endpoint you have to provide @response body yourself. In case you have @controller annotated over your class level. Now if you have @REST controller, you need not to provide @response body with each of the endpoints. So this is the only difference between the two. Now the next one is request mapping. So this is a method level annotation which defines different REST URLs. So like this you can provide @request mapping value is equal to, and whatever is your endpoint URL you can provide over here. Apart from that, you can provide comma your HTTP request method, whether it is get, put, post, delete, whatever it is, you can provide that as well along with this. Now moving on to the next one. Okay, for request mapping you can provide the method and the URL, and we have equivalents at the get mapping, put mapping, post mapping, and delete mapping for each of them. Simply you can provide into double quotes the endpoint URL into it. You need not to provide the HTTP method along with that, because it has @get mapping and post mapping, so it has the method type, HTTP method type along with that. Now another thing is path variable and request param. So this is also very commonly asked questions in most of the interviews. What is the difference between request variable, request parameter, and path variable? So you can see here, path variable is actually part of your URL. Like here you can see it's /who/id. So this ID is a path variable. You can access it into your method using @path variable annotation string ID. So this ID, whatever is provided, suppose I provide /who/1. So this one will automatically be mapped to this ID. So this is path variable, which is provided as a path as a part of path of your particular endpoint URL. Now request param is something that is provided after question mark. Like I have /whos and I give question mark, ID is equal to 1. So that is request param. So you can just whatever will be provided after the question mark. So you using this @request param string ID. So question mark ID is equal to 1. So this ID is automatically being mapped to this ID reference here. Now the another one is response entity. So it actually is used to, you can say, provide the response format to your REST client. Now moving ahead to the next one, is it possible to change the port of Embedded Tomcat server? Yes, it is possible to change it. You can simply provide this server.port is equal to whatever port you want to provide. Like here I have provided 8081 into your application.properties file. As soon as you do it with this simple configuration, whenever you will start your Spring Boot application, it will automatically deploy your application onto 8081 port on the Tomcat server. And if suppose you do not have this particular server dot port defined, or if you mention server dot port is equal to 0, then it is automatically going to assign whatever port will be available to it and will start the application on that particular port. Now, can we override or replace the embedded Tomcat server in Spring Boot? This is also a very commonly asked question by most of the interviewers. So, yes, we can actually disable the embedded Tomcat server and include our own include our own any of the server, WebLogic, Jetty, whatever you want to include as part of it. So, for this, you have to first exclude the Tomcat server dependency, and you have to include the dependency of your particular server that you want to use in place of Tomcat. So as I already mentioned, Tomcat is part of Spring Boot starter web. So I have a small snippet of pom.xml how you are going to do it. So like usually we have the dependency tag. Inside that we provide this Spring Boot starter web. So Tomcat comes bundled as part of this Spring Boot starter web. So as soon as you provide this, your Tomcat dependency will be going to be downloaded from the Maven central repository. Now how to exclude that? So into that you have to provide this exclusion tag. Inside this exclusion tag, you can provide the artifact ID of your Tomcat server. So what it will do is, it is going to download the Spring Boot starter web. Apart from Tomcat, everything is going to be downloaded from the Maven central repository. Basically, it is going to exclude Tomcat dependency from your Spring Boot starter web. Now whatever server, suppose you want to use Jetty, so you can simply add the dependency of that particular server. Like here I have added for Jetty. You can include any of the server that you wish to include. Now the next one is, can we disable the default web server in Spring Boot application? Yes, we can actually disable the default web server into the Spring Boot application. Simply into the application.properties, we can provide spring.main.web application type equal to none. So this will actually disable your particular web server, default web server in your Spring Boot application. So Spring also provides this level of flexibility to the developer. Now that's it from my end. Thank you so much for watching. Please do like, share, subscribe, and if you have some questions, please feel free to ask. I'll be happy to answer all your questions. Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye bye.